We're back once again. It's time to return to the invasion. Because it's time for SmackDown. And it's time to continue on as the slow burn for the invasion commences. And with that being said, I just want to mention that next week's episodes of of this series will be the go-home shows for Judgment Day. And as you can tell, the match list is ever growing for the pay-per-view, as I believe the last time I was here, the tag team title match or the women's title match wasn't here, and possibly one other match. I'm not sure, I don't remember. But as you can tell, Hunter, Benoit, and Austin for the world title. The rematch between the Dudleys and Supply and Demand. The European title is on the line with Eddie against Jeff Hardy. Chris Jericho, as we were told last week on Raw this past Monday, Jericho will defend the Intercontinental title against Kurt Angle at Judgment Day. Speaking of titles, the women's title, Chyna against Lita, and the APA go against Edge and Christian for the WWF tag team titles. With that being said, now it's time. Let's jump into this week's episode of SmackDown. The show kicks off with Michael Cole and Taz talking up appearances from Steve Austin and the Brothers of Destruction later tonight on SmackDown. So now we jump into the first match as Justin Incredible goes up against Steve Blackman, and Steve Blackman gets the win with the guillotine choke over Justin Incredible in the opening match tonight on SmackDown. And then we go to... Now shut up, Justin. I know you could do good in hardcore matches. See, Steve Blackman can, from the years upon years of hardcore wrestling. But either way, now we go to the in-ring with Ivory and the rest of Right to Censor talking up... Well, first, it's Stevie, the Godfather, and Val talking up their feud with the Dudley Boys. Oh, I didn't hear you the first time. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Talking up their feud with the Dudley Boys, and how the Dudleys' actions since coming to the WWF have been reprehensible, and they are the next victim, the next team that Right to Censor will help in showing the error of their ways, because maybe going after the APA first was the wrong move. But it's time for you people to understand exactly why the WWF needs to be cleaned up. And then Ivory takes the mic and shows why Lita, or how Lita is a bad example for women to follow, and why she is a good example, and why people like Lita and Chyna are mistakes to be leading the division. So Ivory talks about why she believes that Lita is a bad role model for women or young girls to be specific, and why they should be looking at Ivory as what a role model should be. This brings out Lita, and there ensues an interesting segment, because the two women have the stage. The three men are off in the back. And it's just Ivory and Lita going back and forth, with Lita defending her position as to why she is a good role model, and why she will face China, and why China is a good role model for women, and why Ivory is nothing more than a stuck-up, passive-aggressive, loony that thinks everything is so cut and dry and simple, and that nothing is allowed to have any aura or mystique or hidden meaning. And yes, this is building up Ivory versus Lita, which will either take place next week on Raw or following the pay-per-view. And now we move to the next match tonight. It is Undertaker and Kane, Brothers of Destruction, teaming up for the first time in a while against two local talents, both of which are probably very known because they both had very successful careers. Yes, that is the man presently known as Ken Anderson, or Ken Kennedy, and the other man is Nova from ECW. No, Nova is actually not employed by me. He is actually on free agency and was brought in tonight on a tryout, which he actually, compared to his counterpart in Kennedy, he actually did not disappoint. So you may be seeing Nova down in developmental very soon. And now we move forward with, once again, Rikishi and Haku getting called out by the Brothers of Destruction, and Taker is screaming and he's saying, "Boys, this is my yard. If you wanted a fight, all you had to do was come out here and ask. But you made a mistake when you did a hit and run on me and my brother. We're gonna make you regret it. I promise you that." And yes, I am aware, as we cut backstage, and I finished the thought, we cut backstage and see Steve Austin entering the arena from earlier today. I am aware that it's very likely that the Rikishi and Haku versus the Brothers of Destruction feud will not be able to last that long due to the differences between Rikishi and Haku and the Brothers of Destruction. I honestly wasn't anticipating it lasting that long. I was maybe anticipating it last a month, 2 months, but I'd be happy with it lasting a month. I'd be happy with that. So, it doesn't really matter to me how far it goes, just as long as it does what it's supposed to do and act as a bridge feud, which that's what it's supposed to be, a bridge feud. Now we move forward as Dean Malenko competes in what I believe to be his first match since his pay-per-view loss to Chavo Guerrero at Backlash against K-Quick. And, of course, the Iceman Dean Malenko gets the victory, as I look to rebuild a little bit of his momentum. And now we cut backstage with Team RECK. Wow, Team Wreck. Rhino, Edge, Christian, and Kurt, as Edge, well, as Kurt is doing most of the talking about how he will beat Chris Jericho at Judgment Day and become Intercontinental Champion, because if he can't have the world title, the least he can have is the Intercontinental. Well, no. Let's take that away, because I don't want to compare the titles. And I would just have Kurt say he's going to teach that Punk some respect and what it means to be an Olympic gold medalist. And Edge says the same thing about Edge and Christian talk up their feud with the APA. I just want to say this, that the reason why I'm saying that they talk up their feud is because I'd give them the segment. Because it's a backstage segment. Rhino's not talking. Rhino's the only one in the segment that does not have a speaking part, because he's not doing anything that needs to be spoken. He just needs to look. I just tell him, the only direction I would give him is, I would give him 3 directions. 3 things that could be broken down into bullet points. I would tell Edge and Christian to build up their match against the APA, Kurt to do the same with Jericho, and Rhino just to look dangerous. That's it. Because it's a backstage segment, and it should be able, and these guys should be able to work on their own and make it good. In my opinion. And now we head to a different part of the backstage area where Jonathan Coachman is standing by with Chyna, and Coach asks Chyna about the earlier segment between Lita and Ivory, and and how she would have responded to Ivory regarding Ivory's take that Chyna and Lita are not proper role models for women, and Ivory is the only proper role model for women. And basically I would have Chyna echo the same sentiment of Lita. You know, that they are positive role models for women. They are leaps and bounds ahead of some women that worked for WWE in the past. And Chyna just says, in my career I've proven that women can be just as successful as men if given the opportunity. I'm a former Intercontinental Champion, and now I'm leading the women's division into the new generation. And Lita, she's my first challenge. And Ivory's just got to accept that maybe it's time for the old guard to step aside. And for the first time in a while, Chyna actually steps into the ring, this time against Allison Danger. And no, for those of you who don't, for those of you who know Allison Danger, no, I did not sign her. Her, much like Ken Anderson and whoever Ken Anderson's partner was, she is one of the 3 local talents that I signed for this show, just because there were no women. The women's division in WWE at this point is not that deep, and to avoid doing the same match on a weekly basis, I chose to sign a local talent. And it was a good match, I gotta admit. It was a good match for what it was. But now we head back to the broadcast position where Michael Cole and Taz talk up the appearance of 6 former WCW stars on Raw. That being Diamond Dallas Page, Booker T, Chronic, Mark Jindrak, and Torrie Wilson. If you missed Raw, well, the continuation of former WCW alumni continued, and for the first time we topped over 5 people, as it was 6 people this time. And the reason why this is big is because for the first time since they started showing up, both Diamond Dallas Page and Booker T showed up at the same time. Normally, I would pick Booker T or DDP to lead the charge for the Invaders, but I just thought this week needs to be a turning point, and the only way I can do a turning point is by having Diamond Dallas Page and Booker T show up together. So that's why, and they took up just the point of this is just to build intrigue, just like the opening segment where they talked up seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin in action tonight was to develop intrigue for the main event. This is to develop intrigue and plant the roots and start planting the roots or planting the seeds for the development of the Invasion. And now we move to the next match, as it is a rematch from Monday night. If you remember, Scotty 2 Hotty and Perry Saturn teamed up against Chavo Guerrero and Hardcore Holly. And Perry Saturn and Scotty 2 Hotty got the victory. And this led to, well, a match. Getting signed for SmackDown, as Bob Holly wanted. As, well, one could realize, Chavo is having his problems with Scotty 2 Hotty. So Holly challenged Perry Saturn to a match, and who knows who knows truthfully where this will go. But what we do know is Bob Holly got his win back from Monday night, and now, well, Edge and Christian get promo time before Edge's match, and yes, they will have one question, or they will recommend something for the benefit of those with flash photography, and they will do a 5-second pose. But much like their backstage segment, I'm giving Edge and Christian free range because I trust them, and I want to see what they can do. And speaking of free range, Edge defeats Farouk as we move forward to Judgment Day, when Edge and Christian face the APA for the WWF Tag Team titles. I mean, this might be the typical, build to the title match, but still, it's effective, in my opinion. Now we head backstage to a surprising scene as Chris Jericho actually walks in to William Regal's office backstage. And much like the rest of us, William Regal is just as surprised as we are to see Chris Jericho in his office. And Chris Jericho just looks at William and says, "I knew you were petty. I'm petty. But I didn't know you were this petty. I beat you to keep this title. And I'm gonna beat Kurt Angle at Judgment Day to do the same. Because if there's one thing that you're gonna have to accept, William, it's that I'm gonna be Intercontinental Champion for a very, very long time." Nice seeing you again. Following a commercial break, we come back and we hear the very familiar glass breaking, and the song starts, and Steve Austin makes his way out to the ring, and Steve Austin says, well, I mean, it's pretty clear, it's Steve Austin, so I'm gonna give him free range on the promo, but there's one line I want him to say. "When I stood out here last week on Raw, Monday Night on Raw, and I saw all those people that want a shot at my belt, I knew that it was time to come out here, issue an open challenge." You know what, fuck it, I changed my mind. He's got free range on the promo. I just want to, basically what I was trying to say was, I want him to talk about all the challengers, possible challengers, I should say, that appeared this past Monday. That being The Big Show, Triple H, Chris Benoit, and The Rock in the opening segment of Raw. And his challenger was, if I remember correctly, a test. Yeah. His challenger was a test for the reason, because I wanted to see if Austin could have a good match with anybody. I know what you're gonna say, Raven's not anybody, Raven is good, blah, 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 blah. And I agree with you. Raven is good. Raven is really good, and this is by far one of the best main events I've had since I started this a month and a half ago, but it was a test just to see if they could do good, and they did, and I'm happy. By the way, this is Raven's return from, I believe, a suspension. I don't remember what it was for, and I don't remember if that's what it was, but I think that's what it was, so let's just call it a suspension. But either way, Raven comes back with a bang, because he actually puts up a good rating with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But post-match, to mix things up, Austin celebrating, Triple H hits the ring and attacks Steve Austin, and SmackDown doesn't end with the WWF Champion celebrating. SmackDown ends with the WWF Champion taking a pedigree from 1/3 of the triple threat match this Sunday. And Triple H is the last sight the people at home see for this episode of SmackDown, as we end with the question, with Michael Cole asking the question, could this be what we see to end Judgment Day? But the only thing different would be, will Triple H be champion at the end of Judgment Day? Unfortunately, we don't have enough interesting storylines going on, but in all negatives there are always positives. And one of those positives is we increased our popularity in 2 regions, which I honestly think that this is the first time, if not ever, first time possibly in a while, possibly ever, that we solely increased in popularity for a show in this season, and I couldn't be happier. And I could not be happier, because I've worked my ass off to try and get my direction going. And by worked my ass off, I mean I fought the urge of jumping right into it, and instead slowly building it up, and moving forward that way. But I can sit here and tell you this, that things will start picking up next month as we head to the King of the Ring. But for right now, let me know down in the comment section below what you think of how I'm booking, and what you think of the direction of WWF at this time. Also, let me know down in the comment section below if you'd like to see anybody in particular join the roster, as I'm always looking for extra depth to what is actually somewhat of a weak roster at this point right now. So let me know all that and more down in the comment section, because as always, feedback is more than welcomed and appreciated. But if you don't want to leave a comment, you can always leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this that you can only find right here at Wrestling Express. Till next time.